So just over a year ago, for the third time in my life, I ceased to exist. I was having a small operation. My brain was filling with anesthetic. And I remember a sense of detachment and falling apart, coldness. And then I was back, drowsy and disoriented, but definitely there. Now, when you wake from a deep sleep, you might feel confused about the time or anxious about oversleeping, but there's always a basic sense of time having passed, of a continuity between then and now. And coming around from anesthesia is very different. I could have been under for 5 minutes, 5 hours, 5 years, or even 50 years. I simply wasn't there. It was total oblivion. Anesthesia, it's a modern kind of magic. It turns people into objects, and then we hope back again into people. And in this process is one of the greatest remaining mysteries in science and philosophy. How does consciousness happen? Somehow, within each of our brains, the combined activity of many billions of neurons, each one a tiny biological machine, is generating a conscious experience. And not just any conscious experience, your conscious experience right here and right now. How does this happen? Well, answering this question is so important because consciousness for each of us is all there is. Without it, there's no world, there's no self, there's nothing at all. And when we suffer consciously, whether it's through mental illness or pain. And if we can experience joy and suffering, what about other animals? Might they be conscious too? Do they also have a sense of self? And as computers get faster and smarter, maybe there'll come a point, maybe not too far away, when my iPhone develops a sense of its own existence. Now, I actually think the prospects for a conscious AI are pretty remote. And I think this because my research is telling me that consciousness has less to do with pure intelligence and more to do with our nature as living and breathing organisms. Consciousness and intelligence are very different things. You don't have to be smart to suffer, but you probably do have to be alive. In the story I'm going to tell you, our conscious experiences of the world around us and of ourselves within it are kinds of controlled hallucinations.
They say beggars can't be choosy, well I ain't too proud to beg. Find out how to rap it out, take you up on the bed. I thank God for a chance right before I go to bed. Fired on my day off, I was feeling just like Craig, fighting crabs in the bucket as we try to get ahead. Why they call you just in time, this is good as it get. I got so much heart, they confusing me with bread. Real ones feel it in they soul, haters they might have a fit. Ask about me in my city, they might tell you that we lit. This might stick to your ribs, just like a bowl of grits. Got a stain on my shirt, it'll come out in a rinse. I'm admired for my strength, trying not to lose my grip. Just like morning brew, you can wake up to this flavor. When you stand in the truth, it'll hit them now or later. We done seen some dark days, I still thank my Lord and Savior. When I try to write it down, tears fall onto the paper.
That happen with, through, and because of our living bodies. Now, you might have heard that we know nothing about how the brain and body give rise to consciousness. Some people even say it's beyond the reach of science altogether.
Just like morning brew, you can wake up to this flavor. When you stand in the truth, it'll hit them now or later. We done seen some dark days, I still thank my Lord and Savior. When I try to write it down, tears fall onto the paper. It's deep.
But in fact, the last 25 years have seen an explosion of scientific work in this area. If you come to my lab at the University of Sussex, you'll find scientists from all different disciplines, and sometimes even philosophers. All of us together trying to understand how consciousness happens and what happens when it goes wrong. And the strategy is very simple. I'd like you to think about consciousness in the way that we've come to think about life. Now, at one time, people thought the property of being alive could not be explained by physics and chemistry, that life had to be more than just mechanism.
Before I go off on this beat, R.I.P. to Dominique. Too blessed to be stressed, you can take that down the street. Strong as a new road, but they thought that I was weak. The paddle broke and we halfway up the creek. I take baked chicken, trying to cut back on the grease. Allergic to the haters, once they talk I start to sneeze. My father is a goat, I'm an apple off the tree. I showed up to the game, that was just a plant to seed. Gotta live the life you live, cause it's not guaranteed. His rhymes sound good, but it's all make believe. Why they call you just in time, cause I give you what you need. They just play a role, I stick to the policy. It's free, cream and sugar, and they do it just to taste. It's in time where you been, and I tell them out the way. Out the corner of my eye, still running for the gate. They laughed at me at first, now they got nothing to say. It's free.
But people no longer think that, as biologists got on with the job of explaining the properties of living systems in terms of physics and chemistry, things like metabolism, reproduction, homeostasis.
They act cream and sugar, but they do it just for taste. They say, "Time, where you been?" And I tell them out the way, out the corner of my eye. Him running for the gate. They laughed at me at first, now they got nothing to say. It's real.
The basic mystery of what life is started to fade away, and people didn't propose any more magical solutions like a force of life or an élan vital. So as with life, so with consciousness. Once we start explaining its properties in terms of things happening inside brains and bodies, the apparently insoluble mystery of what consciousness is should start to fade away. At least that's the plan. So let's get started. What are the properties of consciousness? What should a science of consciousness try to explain? Well, for today, I'd just like to think of consciousness in two different ways. There are experiences of the world around us, full of sights, sounds, and smells, this multi-sensory, panoramic, 3D, fully immersive inner movie. And then there's conscious self, the specific experience of being you or being me, the lead character in this inner movie, and probably the aspect of consciousness we all cling to most tightly. Let's start with experiences of the world around us and with the important idea of the brain as a prediction engine. Now imagine being a brain. You're locked inside a bony skull trying to figure what's out there in the world. There's no light inside the skull, there's no sound either. All you've got to go on are streams of electrical impulses which are only indirectly related to things in the world, whatever they may be. So perception, figuring out what's there, has to be a process of informed guesswork in which the brain combines these sensory signals with its prior expectations or beliefs about the way the world is to form its best guess of what caused those signals. The brain doesn't hear sound or see light. What we perceive is its best guess of what's out there in the world. Let me give you a couple of examples of all this. Now, you might have seen this illusion before, but I'd like you to think about it in a new way. If you look at those two patches, A and B, they should look to you to be very different shades of grey, right? But they are, in fact, exactly the same shade. And I can illustrate this if I put up a second version of the image here and join the two patches with a grey-coloured bar, and you can see there's no difference. It's exactly the same shade of grey. And if you still don't believe me, I'll bring the bar across and join them up. It's a single coloured block of grey. There's no difference at all. So this isn't any kind of magic trickery. It's the same shade of grey, but take it away again and it looks different. So what's happening here is that the brain is using its prior expectations built deeply into the circuits of the visual cortex, that a cast shadow dims the appearance of a surface so that we see B as lighter than it really is. Here's one more example, which shows just how quickly the brain can use new predictions to change what we consciously experience. Have a listen to this.
First page of the book, this is exactly what it read. If you don't do nothing else, then you got to believe. They had me underwater, wouldn't let me up to breathe. I believe in you, cause I know you can achieve whatever's in your heart. You can do anything. They glorify the life, that's the way they entertain. Who he think he is, hottest rapper in the game. I just get a game for free, and they do it all in vain. Ask God for the strength so I can break every chain. Lyricism like Tupac with the fade. When they let me in the door, kick my flow like Luke Kane. I took a stand when most were so afraid. It's real. It's a wake-up call. Ring, ring, ring. Look into my eyes, what you see in me. The way we live today, man, it just can't be. Come on, let's ride.
Sounded strange, right? Have a listen again and see if you can get anything. Still strange. Now listen to this.
It's a wake-up call. Ring, ring, ring. Look into my eyes, what you see in me. The way we live today, man, it just can't be. Come on, let's ride.
I think Brexit is a really terrible idea.
Which I do. So you heard some words there, right? Now listen to the first sound again. I'm just going to replay it. Yeah? So you can now hear words there. Once more for luck. Okay, so what's going on here is the remarkable thing is the sensory information coming into the brain hasn't changed at all. All that's changed is your brain's best guess of the causes of that sensory information, and that changes.
Sometimes it get hard on this journey that we on. They thought that I would quit, but that just made me strong. Start talking like a hater, looked around and I was gone. The game on the line, and right now it's 4th and long. Let me collect my nerves, that way I don't drop the ball. But we just sitting around like a lump on the log. As this world turn, but they think it's just a song. When time hit the beat, man, he bad to the bone. They say we don't know no better, but we know just what we shown. I look where I was at, and I see how much I grown. Had to dive to make the catch, cause the bar was overthrown. They say I raised the bar, man, I had to set the tone. Like a couple Folgers coffee good to the last drop. Come on, get on the buzz, cause we at the last stop. Look where we started at, and look where we at now. Found out how to rap her out, think I got it hands down, let's go.
What you consciously hear. Now all this puts the brain basis of perception in a bit of a different light. Instead of perception depending largely on signals coming into the brain from the outside world.
Like a couple Folgers coffee good to the last drop. Come on, get on the buzz, cause we at the last stop. Look where we started at, and look where we at now. Find out how to rap her out, think I got it hands down, let's go.
It depends as much, if not more, on perceptual predictions flowing in the opposite direction. We don't just passively perceive the world, we actively generate it. The world we experience comes as much, if not more, from the inside out as from the outside in. Let me give you one more example of perception as this active, constructive process. Here we've combined immersive virtual reality with image processing to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions on experience. In this panoramic video, we've transformed the world, which is in this case Sussex campus, into a psychedelic playground. We've processed the footage using an algorithm based on Google's Deep Dream to simulate the effects of overly strong perceptual predictions, in this case to see dogs. And you can see this is a very strange thing. When perceptual predictions are too strong, as they are here, the result looks very much like the kinds of hallucinations people might report in altered states or perhaps even in psychosis. Now think about this for a minute. If hallucination is a kind of uncontrolled perception, then perception right here and right now is also a kind of hallucination, but a controlled hallucination in which the brain's predictions are being reined in by sensory information from the world. In fact, we're all hallucinating all the time, including right now. It's just that when we agree about our hallucinations, we call that reality. Now I'm going to tell you that your experience of being a self, the specific experience of being you, is also a controlled hallucination generated by the brain. Now this seems a very strange idea, right? Yes, visual illusions might deceive my eyes, but how could I be deceived about what it means to be me? For most of us, the experience of being a person is so familiar, so unified and so continuous that it's difficult not to take it for granted, but we shouldn't take it for granted. There are in fact many different ways we experience being a self. There's the experience of having a body and of being a body. There are experiences of perceiving the world from a first-person point of view. There are experiences of intending to do things and of being the cause of things that happen in the world. And there are experiences of being a continuous and distinctive person over time, built from a rich set of memories and social interactions. Now, many experiments show, and psychiatrists and neurologists know very well, that these different ways in which we experience being a self can all come apart. And what this means is the basic background experience of being a unified self is a rather fragile construction of the brain, another experience which, just like all others, requires explanation. So let's return to the bodily self. How does the brain generate the experience of being a body and of having a body? Well, just the same principles apply. The brain makes its best guess about what is and what is not part of its body. And there's a beautiful experiment in neuroscience to illustrate this.